Hey, Rob, welcome to the Digital Slice podcast. How are you today?
Fantastic. It's what is it? Tuesday? Best day of the week.
It is Tuesday and the best day of the week because Tuesday is the day that I record podcasts. So what could be better than that?
Perfect.
All right, let's dive right in because I read that you believe 80% of healthcare marketing budgets are actually burning money. Tell us how they are doing this.
I do. It's been a controversial take, and I've actually put it to the test twice in the last big time in the past 2 years with clients. Basically, the first one was so I guess I would say my own experience is that is true, and it's been true with clients. So I guess I would say two of two makes it true. Maybe there are other more efficient opportunities that I'm missing, but I think the two examples that I have, and I always pick on these, but billboards and radio. I was working with a client when we started working with them. Their entire budget was billboards and radio, and they were came to us because they were having a decline in new patients. They're like, I don't understand. Like we're spending money, but we're not. Like I don't. So we just shifted a lot of it around, and lo and behold, 3 to 6 months later, we reversed the trend and started allocating towards. I think there's this like almost sick sometimes approach to like tracking everything, which I think we know is impossible. But you can see, hey, I'm spending money in this bucket and I'm getting patients that are growing the business or not, right? If it's not working, then you kind of see that too. And maybe there's some other thing you can dig into, but generally you can at least see a trend one way or the other. And so having done that twice, the other one was actually even more hardcore as a bet on radio. Very large bet, $20,000 a month actually for
Wow.
4 months. And the bet was it wasn't canceled. The CEO who took the bet said after 2.5 months he was ready to turn it off, so he could just end it there and we could move on.
Wow.
I think in general, it's there's this idea. I think healthcare in general gets a bad rap because they're behind on technology, they're behind on insurance, they're behind on how you interact with them just from booking an appointment or simple stuff like that. Even their processes feel antiquated a lot of times. I do think that's changing, even as slowly as it is. But I still think that there's this chasm between practices that are doing a really good job marketing their practice and their procedures and what they do, and then everyone else. And then there's really not many people that are like building their way towards that better approach. And so I think that's where it comes from. It's just I audit 2 or 3 accounts a week, and it's the same story every time. So
Yeah. Personally, I think that if people could go to the doctor and one, spend more than 2 minutes with the provider before they made you feel like they had to run off because they had a quota to meet for the day,
yep.
if they would be able to be in the kind of system that allowed them to maybe spend 10 minutes with you or 11 minutes with you, they wouldn't have to market. They'd
Absolutely.
be providing the care that we need, but, we're
Absolutely.
not in that world. So what does a medical practice really need to do to build a revenue system that actually works?
I think the first thing that you want to look at is there's everybody has access to information instantly. So you have AI tools, you've always had Google, but now it's even I would say more aggressive where I can feed in symptoms and talk to it, maybe an AI chat about what's going on. And I think that there's a if you want to differentiate yourself as a provider, it's important to position yourself in whatever type of marketing you're doing. But specifically, I'm talking about video, social media, like spending time and effort, not dancing, but actually educating, like talking about the things that you talk about with patients, obviously anonymously, but almost in the FAQ style. So you take back, like doctors can start to take back the narrative to say, look, I do want to spend more than 2 minutes with you, and here's why I can't. Or here's how I can spend more than 2 minutes with you if you have these types of questions. Or instead of coming in and saying, hey, I was talking to this AI and here's what it told me, you could be more curious as a patient. And so I think doctors that are doing that are quickly, and you see it like in our experience, you see it quickly where they spend time on that as their approach to doing what they're doing for marketing instead of just putting up a billboard. They're maybe doing that, but they're more focused on, and that's what we coach a lot of our clients to do is really just talk about what you do. Like you do it every day with patients. Just spend 5 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe longer, once a month, and answer frequently asked questions. Keep notes about them and go through that and start to build trust and really like build a pre-relationship or relationship with patients before they actually come in. And so that's been like an unlock for when you actually want to go then do marketing, run an offer for something or like a LASIK procedure or a ICL procedure. It's a lot easier because you've already done a lot of the education about what that looks like and what that means to do it with you specifically as a surgeon.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Now, just for the record, one of my doctors, I would like very much to see her dancing on TikTok.
I have
I just want to put that out there for the 2 or 3 people that listen to this podcast.
that are ready to go, yeah, ready to do dancing. I think I pick on that specifically because I have a client right now who has 10 locations. It's a dental group, and they had a previous. I was coming into this transition period where they had a marketing manager that was running their social media, and a lot of what she was encouraging them to do was like trending dances and things like that. And almost so when we started the process of what we were coaching them to do, they were very resistant. It's almost a flat no. So it's almost like a false start before we got going because of that idea. And I think if you want to dance, you should dance. And that's actually part of the personality, right? There's one surgeon, and we haven't used it in any marketing, although I think we should. He has a, what do you call it, outtake photos in a photo shoot where he's like surfing on the surgical table.
Oh,
like,
really?
seems like a fun guy, right? Like he's very relaxed, very good at what he does.
Yeah.
So I think just creating your own brand of it is the idea, but don't stop dancing.
Yeah, I think that you have to put some of your personality into your marketing. Personally, when I do that, people, it's not the best idea just because it's me. But for my clients, I generally would recommend that they talk in their own voice and that their own personality comes out in their videos. Maybe there's a little bit of humor, that it's not always just the facts, and we're off and running. But do you find that when you're talking to people in the healthcare environment about video that they shy away from video and they want to know, does it have to be me? Could it be somebody else? Could I have my receptionist do the video instead of me? Because I find a lot of, can we do slides with my voice in the background or something like that?
Yes. The short answer is yes. In fact, I was talking to a doctor last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I think the direct quote was something like, "Why I always look mad. I don't know what's wrong with my face. I look mad, and so I don't do well." And I think that what I've learned in working with different types of doctors is going back to the personality thing. Some, like, a perfect example is we have a client in Guam, and he's very casually sitting at a desk talking to the camera. It's like he's in this office environment. It seems very natural and it works really well for him, and he speaks very naturally. I have another client in Florida who refused to do anything that was ad lib or ad hoc. He wanted a scripted teleprompter version where he just needed to read all the words and know what they were going to be ahead of time. And those are obviously two very different personalities, but they both did it. And I think ultimately it takes some pushing to really get them to do, it needs to be you. That's the point. Even when there's an AI version, I think that the reality is it's likely going to need to be you as the surgeon, because you, I think that the thing that becomes the hesitation is like you build up this idea, like maybe I don't know what to say or I'm going to be terrible. And the truth is you probably are, right? Like in the beginning, but if you find your version of it, whether it's like you have someone doing like this, like a Q&A where someone's asking you questions and you're prompting them to just talk and give you answers. I have another client who does that, who prefers that style. And so we take the interview, then we take B-roll footage, and we can do a lot in editing and make it look really good. So I would say that the key would be finding your way to do that, to convey the message, that to deliver your, it kind of, because it always is going to match your personality. So if it's an interview, if it's sitting down, if it's scripted, and finding your version of that, it really does unlock a lot of potential. And not just, okay, these are better leads, better quality leads, but it's also at the end of the day, your social media presence. If you stop thinking about it as an afterthought and start thinking about it as the new website or the new brand moat, that is something that's very difficult for someone to come in and replace in your business. Like at the end of the day, you're running a business, and the only way to build a moat around that business is to build a business around you as the practitioner and your personality. Because if somebody new sets up shop, it's going to be very difficult for them to just replicate that overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes really good sense. And every YouTube expert that I've ever talked to has said to me that it sometimes takes 100 videos before you find your groove. And
Yes.
yeah, I interviewed a lawyer several weeks ago who was a YouTube expert, and during the interview he told people, go back and look at my very first few videos and you will never be afraid of doing this after you see how bad I was.
Amazing.
And I think that's true, but we really need to do that. And I think the medical people have that HIPAA challenge also. And you mentioned it earlier about how they need to talk about anonymous kinds of things. And it's not like you can have an interview with a patient unless the patient signs away all his or her rights to the HIPAA. And I found that it's challenging for medical practices to get reviews because a lot of people, depending on the doctor, a lot of people don't want other people to know that they went to see that doctor, which they would theoretically know if they did a review. So I think it's challenging. There's some challenges in addition to their own challenges. There's outside forces that make marketing challenging. Yeah, I think that's the case in some cases. So, what about practices that want to scale? So, what is a medical practice that wants to scale? What do they need to do?
There's three main, we break it down into three kind of components because we see after 90 days, this is likely what the next brick wall is going to look like. Here's your first brick wall. Here's the second one. And we divide it that way. So the first one is always going to be picking the right channel for your business. So everyone thinks, oh, I need to run Google ads. I need to run Meta. I need to do SEO. I need to get billboards. I need radio. You regardless of how many people are doing marketing for you, companies, your team is only going to be able to handle so much. And so really it comes down to what are you going to pick first? What can you actually execute and do? Like if you're not willing to do video and you don't want to do that at all, well, then you probably shouldn't do any kind of social ads because we can spend money there, but it's going to be a waste. So I think the first thing that we always start with is like, what are we advertising? What is the offer that we're trying to put in the market? And it's different for every practice, but for a dentist, like a general practice dentist that's trying to get new patients, it probably looks like some kind of new patient special, right? Or some kind of introductory, come be a patient and here's what you get. Here's why we want you to leave your current dentist or come to us is because you haven't been into a place in a while. For an ophthalmology practice, it looks like for LASIK specifically, it's probably something that looks very, we always try to encourage them to do something for their local market, right? Whether it's discount, fine. We always say, don't run that forever. Do it for 90 days, 60 days, but make sure that you have some plan to not do a discount at some point because it should be something more substantial that you can say, hey, unless just you want to make that your price, and that's fine too. But always experimenting with what works for your market. So the offer is a big part of it. The second one is then, okay, now you've got this lead volume. How are you going to manage it? And that goes back to, I don't think I answered your question very well on revenue systems, but a big part of what we do is manage all the automations on the back end of like when leads come in, we have all this infrastructure for like automated text messaging, phone call monitoring, all the kind of things that you'd expect to be in place. And a big part of it is just managing that, building a system for your team to actually follow up. Are they doing it? Are they keeping up? Are they able to manage the lead flow properly? And that's usually what we hit in the first 60 to 90 days. And then after that, to actually scale it, you essentially start to find, let's say you are doing video, you're on board, you're doing video, it's starting to look really good. How do you actually scale that? Well, you actually start paying attention to what's working really well in your videos. Like, is it testimonials that are working really well? Like we had a client that ran we'd been running video for a while, but we ran this testimonial that we were just like, yeah, let's record it really quick. It was on a phone. We edited it just quickly and just got it up as fast as possible. And that ended up like all their campaigns were getting $30 to $40 cost per lead. That was doing 10 to 12. It's
Oh,
like
wow.
this thing that we just did really fast. But what we found out was it was super authentic. It was someone just off the cuff speaking on the phone to just capture that moment where they had just had a good experience coming to the dentist after being really scared about it. And scaling looks like creating the actual, what is your creative process to keep that engine going? Because now you're in, I think you would probably agree with this. Like at some point we're all in the content business. We're just selling services on the back end.
Yeah.
So if you think about your business that way and the structure of it that way, it's like, how can you continue to help be set up for creating content on a consistent basis, making sure it's edited and then cycled into ads and then working in your flow. And then to actually scale out like beyond that, it looks like hiring either outside or within your own company to manage leads. I can't stress that enough. Like
Yeah.
to have a really good, I do think the AI tools are getting better. I do think you could maybe like experiment with some of that, but you also want to have a human who's solely responsible for lead management. And it's just something that you can avoid for as long as possible. But at some point, if you really want to grow, it's just, you have to have that.
Yeah. So while we're talking about that lead management, is there some kind of follow-up psychology that converts cold leads into patients? Because I think follow-up is the key, but it has to be done right.
Absolutely. So we recommend that you always try to ask questions that are not, that at first give you the simplest possible answer, yes or no. A great one with LASIK, for example, is like, do you currently wear contacts, glasses, or both? Quick, simple answer. So now you've engaged someone, they're actually responding, and then you can actually start to build a conversation from there. Sometimes we say one client started doing, would you like to text about it or would you like for us to give you a call? We could do either one. And so then they're like, oh, I'd like to text about it. Okay, great. So we start doing that. I think that's one way to keep leads engaged, because you can always refer back to that. Oh, you like wanted to get rid of your glasses. Like, why did you want to get rid of your glasses? And so that's part of the coaching that we do with a lot of the practice, is just really being curious. I think generally that's like how it works, right? But it's sometimes you just forget that because you're just quickly trying to get them booked into an appointment, but maybe they're not ready. And so just reading that helps you create a better patient experience. And then beyond that, there's we have a sequence, like a follow-up sequence, for example, that's like we call it the long nurture. And so maybe somebody stops responding, or they just say, hey, I'm not ready right now. So we actually do like a breakup text, like at some point where they're like, oh, I'm not ready right now. Okay, that's great. And send me your next offer. So we put them in a bucket. When we run a new promotion, we send them a text at that point and say, hey, just let you know we're running this promotion now. You opted in for that. Are you ready to take the next step? And then in some cases, we even have a nurture sequence that's up to a year long, where it just kind of drips like a testimonial. It drips Google reviews specifically, and just like nudges, really. It's just all it is. And so I don't think we've ever had anybody I'm sure we have. That's not true. We've had people go all the way to the year and not respond, right? But the point is, you've spent money to acquire these leads. So now work them across all possible ways, right? If they don't respond right away in the first 24 hours, don't just consider them done. There's a lot of opportunity there. And so I've seen it with a client firsthand where they hired someone specifically to do follow-up. And within the first 2 or 3 weeks, it was their close rates and their cost per patient went way, way down because they had this follow-up in place that was like manual, a human doing it. But that was just all they needed, just to kind of keep nudging. People are busy. I don't know if you would agree with this, but I think that I've heard this a couple of times and I really like it's like there is no net new attention. Like all of our attention is spoken for every minute of every day. So the only way to bring someone into your world is to break through the attention somehow, or nudge or remind. That's really the only choice that you have. And so don't feel like you're interrupting them. You're reminding them, you're nudging them to say, hey, you want to get LASIK, or you want to come in, be a new patient. You do need to go to the dentist. People need those things. And so it's just a matter of shifting your mindset to say, hey, I'm just reminding you, nudging you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that is, I 100% agree with that. Rob, give me 1 or 2 takeaways you want listeners to take away from our discussion.
I think the first one is you got to dance on. I think 1 or 2 takeaways. I would say find the channel when it comes to marketing. Find the thing that you can do that you feel like you can do sustainably. So if you're not ready to do video, but you could get over the hump and start creating it and have a system that works, when it starts working, don't immediately start doing something else. Keep doing that for some period of time that feels longer than natural. And you'll start to see the impact of that over a longer period of time. I would say that's the first takeaway, that just find the channel. If it's Google Ads, great. Just keep figuring out, is it the offer? Is it the landing page? Is it the follow-up? Is it how they submit leads? Do we need to have a phone number? There's a million different variables within any channel that you pick. And so a lot of times people will just say, hey, I ran a boosted post and it didn't work. And so, of course it didn't work. Like, you did it one time, let's move on from that. So I would say that's the biggest takeaway. The other one is, yeah, I'm gonna stick with that one.
Stick with that one. Okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your company and what you do and who you do it for.
I own a company called WP Duo. We started as a website marketing company, and obviously once we realized we need to send leads, the point of a website is to capture leads, and so we ended up transitioning into this performance marketing company. And we had a handful of clients in the medical space, and so we have really doubled down on working with medical and elective medical practices over the last 2 years, and I've gotten really good results. And I think short of rebranding or launching some other brand, that's what we're sticking with, and we're going to keep doubling down on that from now into the future. And so WPDuo.com is our website. I think if you wanted to meet with me directly, you can book a call there, or you can check me out on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time trying to create, again, do what I tell clients to do. I'm doing what you're doing. I'm doing it right now, right? And so it's Not Today Rob on Instagram, and that's mostly because I like talking about this stuff all day. People are like, Not Today Rob.
That's great. So where do people go to find you dancing?
Yeah, Instagram would be the main place. I would say Not Today Rob on Instagram, and I check LinkedIn twice a week or once a week, so I'm getting better. But again, I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid. I'm doing one platform, one place, trying to be in one place, and that's pretty much Instagram right now.
Okay, I don't think they like you dancing on LinkedIn, so
no, I know that's
you're good. Yeah. All right, Rob, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you bet.